Hey there, and welcome. You are getting more and more into miniature painting, the pile of paints is getting bigger and bigger, and you're slowly running out of space to store your paint bottles. Let me show you how you can store those bottles in a paint rack that you can even mount on a wall for both Citadel paint bottles as well as regular dropper bottles. Let's go! The only materials you really need are some foam boards with a thickness of 3 mm. The overall size of my paint rack is about 40 to 30 centimeters, so about 4 foam boards in this size would be ideal for the whole rack. First I cut the back panel into the size of 40 by 30 centimeters. And then I measured about 6 millimeters in from the left and the right side. This is where the side panels will be placed later in the project. This step is important in the beginning because this gives me the width of the shelves that will hold the paint bottles. In my build sketch you can see that every individual shelf needs to be attached in a 65 degrees angle and 4 centimeters apart from each other. Sorry for my American viewers, but in this build I only use the metric system because it is easier for me. I hope you can forgive me. Starting with the shelves for the Citadel paint bottles, which are rather large. I took a fresh foam board and cut out every shelf with a width of about 28 centimeters and a depth of 7 centimeters. In this example I cut out 6 of those shelves, 5 for the paint bottles and, very important, 1 for the bottom shelf that does not hold any bottles at all. This is my ideal layout. Here you can see that the first shelf will hold 5 Citadel bottles. The diameter of those bottles is 32 millimeters, so exactly the same as 32 millimeter miniature bases. But we need a tiny bit of a bigger diameter so the bottles have more wobble room. So a 35 diameter should do the trick. This Vallejo varnish bottle is a perfect template. Then I measured 2 centimeters from the left and right edge and marked the first spots for the bottle holes. Then I drew a guideline about 33 millimeters in from the front of the shelf. That helped me to mark the holes for the bottles. Like you can see, there is a little bit of an overhang, so the holes will extend beyond the shelf. After I cut out the first hole, I measured 2 centimeters from the edge of the hole and drew a line there. This marks the edge of the next hole. I did the same on the other side of the shelf and the last hole will be placed in the center of it. For the next shelf, which will sit right below or above the one I just made, I just placed the shelves on top of each other and marked the center of the holes I just cut out. This prevents an overlap and gives me more space for the bottles. Then I drew the guidelines again, so one big line 33 millimeters in from the front and also for every marking I just made. Unfortunately, this layout gives me only space for 4 bottles, but that's okay. After the first 2 shelves are done, I used those as template to make the remaining ones. For the smaller dropper bottles, I took different measurements. The width is again 28 centimeters, but the depth is only 6 centimeters now. So 1 centimeter less than the Citadel shelves. Since the dropper bottles are a bit smaller, I could fit more in one shelf and measuring the distance between every hole was easier. I drew the first line from the left and right edge from the shelf, 1 centimeters in. And again a big guideline from the front edge, but this time only 24 millimeters in. Regular 25 millimeter bases are perfect as a template to make the holes. To mark the other holes, I measured 4 centimeters from the outer guidelines and again 1 in the center of the shelf. For the next shelf, I did pretty much the same as for the Citadel shelves. I put them on top of each other, marked the center of the first holes, and then I again measured 4 cm to mark the edge of every hole. For any additional shelf, I used these as template as well. Now it was time for the sideboards, which hold the shelves in place. So I took a fresh foam board again and cut 2 pieces into the right size, which was 40 by 6.5 centimeters. Then I took the big back panel again and drew 10 by 3 mm holes into the markings that I made in the beginning of the video. The distance between those markings was about 10 centimeters. And then I cut those markings out. After that, I took the 2 side panels and traced the markings from the back panel that I just made with a depth of 3 mm. Then I cut everything out. But this time not the small markings, but the large markings opposite them. The intention of those cutouts was to make small notches that helped me to attach the side panels to the back panel later. I also made bigger cutouts in the center of the back panel with a distance of 4 centimeters to each other, so basically the distance between the shelves. These holes had a size of about 40 to 3 millimeters. And then I also had to create the notches for these holes on every individual shelf. So again, measuring 4 centimeters in the center. I made these measurements a bit smaller, so I had more room for assembling later. To attach the shelves on the side panels, I had to make holes and notches for those on the sides as well. This was a bit trickier because I had to take the 65 degrees angle into account. So it would be helpful if you had a ruler to measure angles. So I took the side panels and made markings every 4 centimeters on the back side with the notches. With my ruler, I drew a line in a 65 degrees angle. And from there on, I continued to make markings also every 4 centimeters. So it was only necessary to measure the angle for the first line. On those lines I marked 10 by 3 mm holes as well, about 5 centimeters in from the backside of the panels, and cut those out. I did the same for every shelf to make notches there. this was pretty much it. Only thing left to do was assemble and glue everything together. First I glued only one side panel in place and then I added one shelf after the other. I had to keep in mind to alternate between the shelf layouts, so that the holes do not overlap. But I messed this one up for the last few shelves, unfortunately. The last piece did not have any holes in it. Without the shelf, the bottles in the last shelf would just slip through the holes and fall to the ground. Finally, I glued the second side panel into place. I almost forgot to poke 2 holes into the top part of the rack to be able to hang the whole thing on a wall. When you're done, just hammer 2 small nails into your wall, hang the rack on them and fill it with your paint bottles. And as always, if you wanna see more stuff like this, leave me a comment down below, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Alright, thank you for watching, have a good one, cheers.